PSYCHO-PICTOGRAPhy by Vernon, The New Way to Use the Miracle Power of Your Mind. Chapter 4. How to Break Self-Defeating Habits. The story is told of a man who lived in a home having mirrors as walls. Whatever room he entered, he saw himself reflected in a mirror. He spent his time looking at himself from this angle and from that viewpoint. Day and night, he saw only himself. At first, it was a highly gratifying experience. His own image was the only thing in the world. Nothing existed outside himself. He was the sole object of attention and admiration. But after a while, a strange anxiety set in. The thrill of seeing only himself turned into a dull habit, then into desperate pain. What had once been a thrilling gratification had now become a terror. Loneliness entered. He felt depressed, but worst of all, he felt trapped. One day, a furious rebellion swept through him. Taking stones, he hurled them against the mirrors, revealing an entirely new world on the outside. Having broken his habitual self-imprisonment, he enjoyed his new world. This chapter reveals an entirely new method for breaking habitual living patterns. In keeping with the basic principle of psychopictography, our purpose is to change ourselves. People often ask, why am I such a slave to my habits? And is there a way out of this daily grind that really gets me nowhere? I assure you that there is a way out. Simply defined, a habit is a repeated way of doing something, of thinking, acting, feeling, responding, and so on. There are beneficial habits, such as finding right procedures and abandoning wrong ones. There are harmful habits, such as worrying about tomorrow and meeting daily challenges with negative reactions. How to conquer unwanted habits. Here is great news. All harmful habits can be broken. There are no exceptions to this principle. You can, if you want, empty your life of destructive habits, just as you might empty a pail of unwanted junk. Habits are a result of our conditioning. That is, they were acquired through association with others with the same habits. Habits are usually picked up by imitating other people or by following their example. There are two ways to conquer unwanted habits. One method is to attack the habitual desire with a new desire. Suppose that you want to stop smoking. You must introduce a new desire that is contrary to the desire to smoke. You could encourage the desire to save money, or to show your friends how strong you are, or you might want to improve your health. If any of these are strong enough, you will conquer the habit, for the stronger always overcomes the weaker. But the far more effective way is through the powerful idea of non-identification. This means that you break the habit by ceasing to identify with it. To identify with a habit means that you take the habit as yourself, but you are not the same thing as your habit. If you have the habit of wearing a green jacket, you are not the same thing as that jacket. You are merely wearing it for a time. Likewise, you are not the same thing as your habit. You and your habit are two entirely separate things. Try to see this. How to achieve non-identification. Let's continue with this method of non-identification. Do not say, I have a bad temper, or I am absent-minded. Every time you do this, you strengthen the illusion that you and your habit are one and the same thing. But just as you are not that green jacket you are wearing, you are not a habit that you wear on the inner self. Refer to a habit as it. When speaking of absent-mindedness, say it is a present part of my life. This wears down the identification. It separates you from the habit. You begin to see them as entirely different things. Once your mind glimpses the truth that a habit is merely something acquired, it also sees that it need not be a permanent part of the inner makeup. Since a habit is acquired, it can also be dropped. A harmful habit, whatever it may be, is part of the false self. As the false self is dissolved through psychopictography, unwanted habits fall away of themselves. So work on uncovering the true self. It is entirely free of unwanted habits. Back in the days of sailing vessels, British and American sea captains were faced with a peculiar problem. In crossing westward from England to Boston, the voyage was much slower than when crossing eastward from Boston to England. In fact, the westward crossing took an additional 2 weeks, which represented considerable loss of time and energy. The owners of the vessels carried their problem to Benjamin Franklin, who was Deputy Postmaster General at the time. Franklin, in turn, consulted a veteran sea captain named Timothy Folger. "It takes 2 weeks longer," explained Folger, "because you don't understand the Gulf Stream. When crossing westward, it flows against a ship, costing as much as 3 miles an hour. Don't fight the Gulf Stream. Get outside of it and into the free sea." We need not fight our unwanted habits. As we will see in later pages, a frontal assault only increases their power. We need only sail in natural waters. The power of mental pictures in breaking habits. At this point, I want to review with you a few basic ideas about psychopictography. There is value in reminding ourselves of the miracle method of mental pictures. The ideas you have absorbed have already begun their good work within. According to your receptivity, they have spread their rays into your mind to enlighten it. Perhaps you have already experienced a change or two. For instance, maybe you react with a shade less anxiety to a daily condition. Or maybe you now understand something that you never quite saw before. Increase your receptivity. You then become like the needle of a compass. No matter how it is turned or twisted by outer elements, it always swings back to point in the right direction. Our actions in life are a result of the way we see life. No truth is more important to grasp than this. We act toward life for benefit or loss according to the way we habitually see things. Suppose that you are about to enter a room full of strangers. As you step into that room, a picture flashes into your mind of how you acted on a previous entering. That past viewpoint now determines your present behaviour. If you were nervous and uncertain on a previous occasion, that negative image instructs you were nervous before, so you must be nervous again. And that is exactly what will happen. But suppose you smash that harmful and habitual mental image. Suppose you change it to one of calm confidence. That new mental picture would then work itself out into new and poised behaviour. The way you think determines the way you act. The way you act determines what happens to you. Think well and you act well. Act well and all is well. New mental pictures mean a wonderful new life. They turn our received ideas into personal powers. In his essay, Intellect, Ralph Waldo Emerson speaks of the transfer of truth. But to make it available, it needs a vehicle or art by which it is conveyed to men. To be communicable, it must become picture or sensible object. How to attain the habit of peace. It is helpful to remember that negative mental pictures are only imaginations. If a person takes them as real, he gives them false power to frighten him. This fear may then turn into self-harming behaviour. Take a person who maintains an image of himself as being cruel. He will then unconsciously act out that image with cruel behaviour, which is always self-destructive. He is like a man who burns down his house because he doesn't like a picture he took of it. But, and this must never be forgotten, all negative imaginations can be shattered. They can be replaced with positive pictures, with the true self which resides in peace. As one woman phrased it, the secret magic of mental pictures makes you as free as you used to be. We must never be afraid of the new truths prompted by psychopictography. We must never resist them. I mention this because the human mind tends to be shy of the new and strange, but this is like resisting diamonds because we are familiar only with rocks. As Dr. Fritz Kunkel points out, but this new image appears as the inner enemy only as long as the individuals identify themselves with their egos. The next moment, they may remember that they always felt a longing for a better and deeper life, but they wanted to achieve this by self-control and moral practices. Now another avenue is open towards this goal. It comes from inside themselves, not with moral commands, but with creative power. It is really their better self. Why no one is permanently lost. Mental pictures help you to find this true self described by Dr. Kunkel. They destroy painful illusions. They cancel the contradictions of the false self. Every area of life takes on a new and refreshing look. Let's take a practical example of a helpful mental picture. Some years ago, a statue of a national hero was erected in a South American village. As hard times came, the village was abandoned. Jungle vines crept up to cover and conceal the statue. Its existence was forgotten for many years. Then someone remembered. The statue's value was discussed and verified. An exploration party was organised to reclaim it. For weeks the explorers chopped their way through the green maze. Their efforts met with reward. The long-lost statue was located. It was cleared of its entanglements and restored to its former glory. Every man or woman is something like that. No one is permanently lost. No mental jungle can withstand the person determined to find his true self. As a specific instance, a woman told me that she had been lost in the jungle of daily irritability. After working with mental pictures, she reported, I'm amazed to find that I need not be lost in irritability. At the end of the day, I wonder why I no longer get quite so angry and upset. In order to remember your dreams, you must write them down the moment you awaken in the morning. Otherwise, they slip swiftly from memory. The same with the ideas in psychopictography. Once you grasp the truth of a mental picture, try to impress yourself with it. Write it down on a slip of paper, mark it in the book, reflect upon it as you go through your day. That makes it a permanent picture with persistent power. Attracting high-level prosperity. Your level of mental awareness attracts the habitual life you lead. This towering truth is worth days of examination. It can save years of barren effort. Here we have a secret principle usually understood only by those who delve deeply into esoteric doctrine. It is a mysterious feature hidden within many well-known teachings, including Christianity, Zen Buddhism, and in the messages of Socrates and Plato. I want to make it very clear to you so that you can attract an entirely new circle of fortune. During a battle of the Middle Ages, a king's life was saved by an archer in the ranks. In gratitude, the king declared to the soldier, "Climb up the mountain trail for a period of 6 hours. All the land that is viewed from the topmost height shall be yours. The higher you ascend, the more you possess." The archer hiked upward, pausing at intervals to rest. At each halt, the king's officers gazed across the countryside, making note of the most distant landmark. The higher the soldier climbed, the more territory the king's men claimed for him. Finally, the soldier possessed a vast area of land with all its natural wealth. Because that soldier acted upon the king's promise, he became wealthy. I give you a similar promise. By uplifting your level of mental awareness, you will be rich. You will attract a wider variety of prosperities than you can imagine. You receive whatever you perceive. In esoteric teachings, seeing something is the same as possessing that something. Awareness of a new height automatically returns the profits of that new height. Your level of mental awareness attracts the habitual life you lead. Try to see that there are different levels of awareness, of understanding. Also, see that the higher your level of awareness, the more you attract the genuinely good things of life. Some people think that this makes a nice philosophy, but you must do more than this. You must work with it until you experience its rich rewards. It will help your understanding if you remember that psychologically, like attracts like. How to change everything for the better. Someone asked, what sort of things change as I climb to a higher level of understanding? Everything changes, absolutely everything. Replace an old bouquet of flowers with a fresh one, and you have fresh colours, a new arrangement, new charm in every way. Will I be more at peace with myself and with the world? This must happen. You presently see the world as you are. Uplift what you are, and you automatically become more peaceful with your world. What about material things like money? You will think clearly toward all financial matters. You will not spend money foolishly because you will know the difference between wise and foolish spending. Money will have its proper place. Whether you have a little or a lot, you will never have emotional conflict over money. Why? Because you are no longer using it for ego gratification, but simply for practical purposes. This idea has great significance for you. Think it through. What about friendships and social relations? They always change for the better. It is a psychological law that you attract people who inhabit your own level of understanding. When you ascend, you attract people on the same higher level. You will find, as you grow, that you drift away from former friends. This is because you no longer have mutual psychological interests. Your new relationships are much happier. There is much less conflict and quarrelling, so characteristic of a lower level. Can these ideas be proven? That is the whole point. I want you to prove them for yourself by personal experience. That is how you win their riches. Do you know what causes you to value these ideas more than anything else? It is when you actually see yourself changing for the better as a result of them. Once you get a taste of truth, nothing can stop you from searching for more. And there is always more. That's the beauty of inner growth. It is an endlessly enjoyable adventure. I think that's the point of the mental picture about the climbing soldier. By climbing for himself, he proved for himself. Right. All this may seem a bit mysterious to you at present, but work with it. Start climbing as best you can. Use the principles of psychopictography to uplift your level of understanding. Every new level is a delightful surprise. Psychopictography changes your past. Nothing arouses more interest and wonderment than the idea we will now explore. Psychopictography, the miracle method of mental pictures, changes the bothersome past. By teaching a man to see past events through enlightened eyes, these bothersome events lose their power to harm. No longer can a foolish mistake flood a man with painful feelings of regret, guilt and anxiety over the worst of folly vanish completely. A man no longer feels that he has missed the boat, lost the golden opportunity, or been cheated out of anything. How does this miracle come about? Let's take the case of Ruth B., who, as a young woman, found herself in trouble with a man. Disgraced and ashamed, she moved to a distant city. None of her new friends knew, of course, but she added, "But I know. Is there an escape from this hounding guilt?" First, Ruth, may I point out that guilt is a deceitful emotion. It is commonly thought to be a sign of humility and repentance, but it is just the opposite. Guilt is a self-centered emotion concerned with what others will think, with reputation and so on. Not only that, but guilt prevents you from finding freedom from its cause. Yes, I can see that. Guilt gets me nowhere. So what do I do? Your freedom lies in not identifying yourself with your past mistake. Let me explain what is meant by the term identification. This means that you presently identify yourself and your mistake as one. You take them as the same thing. You wrongly think that you are your mistake, but you are not. You are not your mistake. Your false self made that mistake, but you are not your false self. You see, mistakes like this spring from the false self, which is governed by illusions, impulsiveness, vanity, and just plain foolishness. But your true self is free of all this. This may be difficult to grasp at first, but please stick with it. You cannot possibly imagine the miracle it will perform for you. Can you suggest an easy start, something I can grasp? Don't identify yourself as being foolish. See that past event as a foolish act on the part of the false self, which is not really you. Separate the true self from the false self. How to beat the problem of resistance. Ruth's progress can be likened to one of the rivers of the Andes in South America. Starting on a muddy mountain, its yellow water flows down a long valley. As it steadily rolls away from its source, it is fed on both sides by clear, fresh streams. Gradually, the purifying streams transform the river into a natural state of clarity and beauty. A man's purifying waters are his thoughts of a higher level. They perform the miracle of clearing his past, of giving him a fresh flow today. At this point, I want to explain something helpful for changing not only your past, but the present and the future as well. Whenever you decide to rebel against a habitual negativity of any kind, a resistance arises within you. You see, negative habits don't want to give up the harmful power they have had over you for so long. They fear extinction, but you must give them no consideration whatsoever. Your peace and progress are at stake. By understanding that this new resistance is the usual thing, you will not be puzzled or discouraged when it arises. Armed with this understanding, you can cheerfully persist until you crash through the habit barrier. People are baffled at the difficulty in breaking a mental habit, for instance, that of getting depressed over a business problem. They are even more puzzled at the enormous resistance to their efforts to break the habit. They may succeed for a short time. Then, as one woman recently remarked, I always end up with the same habit of between-meal snacks. I'm like a soldier who decides to give battle, but who runs smack into 10 enemy soldiers. So I quit. Why fight a losing battle? She's right. It is useless to battle like this. A direct attack on a habit only strengthens it. I advised her, do not think that the habitual self has power over its habits. Now, since this is so, how can you dissolve the habit? By getting an entirely new self, a self that is not identified with the habit. Mastering power thinking. It is a bright day when a man or woman sees the need for thinking with full force. Far too many people think loosely, mechanically, without design or purpose. They fail to realise that the mind possesses dozens of self-serving powers, such as attention and flexibility. The chief enemy of power thinking is habit. People think along the same lines day after day without realising that habitual thought has limited benefits. Habitual thinking is circle thinking that leads nowhere. It blocks mental exploration. It prevents a man from searching out and finding higher levels of living. The first step in venturing beyond mechanical thinking is to become aware that we are doing just that. We must not mistake an echo for an answer. This supplies our first clue to an alternative. We sense that there is something superior to mechanical thought. It is known that the famous Calinian diamond is only one half of the original stone. By studying the inner structure of this fabulous gem, scientists know that it has another half undiscovered as yet. A man's mind is like that. We need the mechanical part, all right, for it releases us from consciously thinking about routine matters like walking or dressing. But the other half, the creative part, is also necessary if we are to live more than a merely mechanical life. We must find and put to use the other half of our mental diamond. One way to engage in power thinking is to think from a basic principle of truth. Consider this principle as sort of a camp from which you will explore the forest of life. Select a mental picture from this book that attracts you in particular. Give it your consistent attention and interest. Let your mind explore it as you go through your day. Try to find its deeper meaning. This kind of easygoing reflection permits the principle to unfold itself, to tell you its full story, and that, in turn, raises your living level. Dissolving destructive habits. Why, asks someone, do we repeat our self-defeating behaviour? For instance, bad temper. Why would a man cling to such a destructive habit for year after year? We cling to self-defeating habits because we don't really see them as such. Remember the basic principle that no man ever consciously harms himself. We cling to harmful habits because they give us temporary gratification of some kind. A man might justify his bad temper because he thinks it makes him look like a man of strength, like someone who knows his rights and demands them. This justification smothers his ability to recognize bad temper as a self-destructive habit. How would he become aware of his self-deception? By willingly dropping the imaginary self-picture he has of being a strong and dominating individual. As he does so, it becomes natural and has no further need for temper. He was using it to support his fictitious picture of strength, but no longer having that picture, he no longer needs to hang it on the nail of temper. Then this man must start observing himself. He must see that he is acting out of a false role. Exactly. Then this self-observation will cause him to challenge that false self-picture. That in itself is fine progress. He has already weakened its hold on him. Along with this, the man begins to think along new lines. He says to himself, let's see. Now, this negative behaviour of mine is really getting me nowhere. I always end up scared and miserable. This must be self-defeating behaviour. Yes, that's what it is, and I don't want to go on with it any longer. It seems so easy when you explain it, but why do we so stubbornly persist in the wrong way? Because of another false assumption we have, that the present self-damaging way is the only way. It isn't the only way. For there is the great alternative of inner freedom. But a man in mental prison can't see the outside world. He knows only prison. He will even resist you if you tell him of liberty. Why? He fears that the loss of prison means the loss of himself. He thinks he will be lost, empty, with no place to go. His prison-conditioned mind reasons, better to be miserable than to be homeless. He doesn't realise that there is a castle for him. We find this castle by challenging our conditioned outlooks? Yes. Learn to see that they are merely conditioned attitudes, but do so light-heartedly. You can work hard without making it hard work. Have fun with the adventure, for that's what it is, an adventure in self-discovery. Why listening to messages helps break habits. Get the habit of closely examining your unprofitable experiences. Discover how they came about. Study the causes that produced the effect. Make it a scientific investigation. The answer to an unhappy experience is hidden within the experience itself. Most importantly, discover the role that you played in bringing about the result. Don't hesitate to take responsibility for your personal part. Self-honesty leads to self-insight. Self-insight leads to freedom from negative habits. All self-examination should be done unemotionally. Don't blame yourself or dislike yourself for anything. Self-blame only creates new waves of unprofitable emotions. Instead, look at the experience with a calm and curious mind. Remember that your objective is not to find fault with anything, but to scientifically look at the event with profit as your goal. It helps to examine an unrewarding experience in the way that a wise cook might look over a cake recipe that didn't turn out so well. The cook wouldn't get angry at either himself or the recipe. Rather, he would study the entire process. He would review the ingredients, check the oven temperature and so on. That would break up the previous negative process. Whenever we experience physical discomfort, like a headache, that discomfort is really a message. It tries to tell us something for our own good. It might inform us that we are involved in too many needless activities. It might signal that resentment is a wrong reaction to being ignored by someone. If heeded, that message can help us make corrections. The same with upsetting experiences. We should again listen to the message. So consider this idea the next time something bothers you. It will help you to think toward the experience in a new way, a non-distressing way. To summarize, we should let negative events show us where we are out of harmony with natural laws of living. As Francis Bacon wrote, nature is commanded by obeying her. Learn from an experience by examining that experience. That is how to exchange poor life habits for rich ones. Foremost features of this chapter. 1. All unwanted habits can be replaced with beneficial ones. 2. Do not identify with an unwanted habit. It is something merely acquired. It is not a part of the real you. 3. Increase your receptivity to mental pictures. Let them work for you more and more. 4. Your thinking habits determine the kind of life you lead. 5. Do not resist new truths. They want to set you free. 6. Lift your level of awareness. 7. Everything good happens to you as you switch your life habits from negative to positive. Prove it for yourself. 8. You are tied to a sad past by mental chains only. Break them. 9. Do not try to change a habit with a direct attack. Your total understanding causes it to fall away. 10. Listen to the secret message of your experiences. Let them help you to build self-serving habits.